See, now that's fun to me. I could play a slow blues all day long, you know.
What do you play when you just pick the guitar and play? For example,
Slow blues.
slow blues, some licks.
Some like more.
You all play guitar too? Pretty much everyone.
Don't play me, but metal guitar, but
Metal guitar.
I like it.
Mm-hmm. I think it applies really as well on all the stuff I try and talk about in this applies to just music in general. You know, that's the way I really see it. This is just the thing I ended up, you know, the tool I ended up with, I suppose. You know,
Yeah.
when I listen to B.B. King or Oscar Peterson play piano, two of my favourites I listen to about equally, you're just hearing B.B. King and Oscar Peterson, not really guitar or piano. Well, that's how it is to me. You know, it's just a thing, because they're saying something really, and so that's what I was trying to do. I think we could show this actually, but like we were talking about with things being rhythmic and simplicity really, even though what we both play is kind of complex, it works, or I see things as lots of simple things done well on top of one another, rather than, I think so, especially with guitar, for some reason people get caught up in something very, very complicated, or a complicated lick or an idea, but it's actually lots of simple things done properly on top of each other. So unless you can do the first simple thing, anything more advanced than that is going to never work well. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
you know, just,
so if they are played in cool and right time, with a laid back groove, with a lot of confidence, like placed in every single note you play.
Yeah.
Like you play a simple lick like. Like put it on a good timing, and then it's got more power than if you just like not concentrate on the signals.
To really try and make a statement rather than mumbling. Like that's, or you know, a friend of mine who's a great guitar teacher from the Berklee School of Music in Boston. He showed me this example of just playing like a blues, something like. Right, just the famous blues like that. Unless you can play it that cleanly and in time with a good tone, and then playing something more complicated than that is never going to sound good, if that makes sense. So you have to. It's really simple, but it's quite hard to do that simple thing solid and with every note sounding and the rhythm and the feel. You know, so you're never going to be able to play Rude Mood by Stevie Wonder unless you can play it like that first. So that's one of the biggest explanations of how to get good at anything, really. I think is seeing it like that. So I see so much guitar instructional material seems to be about like learning licks and phrases, but with no use for them, you know. You know. So I don't know what you're supposed to do with them really after you can do this, you know. Gosh, I don't know what that's for.
Yeah.
Or can we play the slow blues again? I just want another similar idea of just to kind of. Sometimes it's good to like limit yourself so that you can play. I'm just going to play the whole 12-bar progression with 3 notes. I'm not going to play any more than 3 notes, but hopefully I'll be able to follow the changes of the chords, and it won't be horribly boring for you. You know, so you know, just to prove that, forget about the notes and it's the other stuff, right? So like 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so I'd rather listen to somebody do that. And yeah, you're not Albert King there, but that is what he was the greatest ever at doing. I never get bored. I listen to him all day, every day for the rest of my life. I've already, 30 years into it, and if I get another 30 years, I'll keep doing it for another 30 years. And I know exactly what he's going to play, and every time he plays it, it's like I've never heard it before, ever. It's new, every phrase is new, even though you know exactly what he's going to say. And that's the beauty. So it's, for me it's more like having a vocabulary to communicate with rather than knowing lots of things. Hard to explain. It's a bit like... Yeah, it's about how do you explain talking, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's in general it's to keep things very simple and work on them until you have the feeling that they sound good,
Yeah.
and then move on to the next step. Like for me, it was the same. I was always trying to copy fast licks because I listened to Gary Moore when I picked up the guitar for the first time, and he's playing incredibly fast stuff which you can't really get if you just listen to it. Well then, lucky me, I was digging more into B.B. King and Albert King, and still it's completely impossible to really play how they play, but it's possible to get in that direction, to hear the note and to hear this like B.B. King lick, and to try to work on this with the vibrato and with the intensity and the feeling you put into it. So I would just say, like, work on the simple stuff until you and maybe some other people who have a good feeling for music think it sounds great, and then move on to the next level, to not get frustrated with the too soon.
Enjoy it, right? Like, and as well, like, I think when I've done this kind of thing, I've done whole weekends where you get to know other people's, or people who are learning, and you get to know their playing, and they can be a little bit afraid of the guitar, you know, like but you're the boss, you know, so it's you get to decide what it does for you, you know, rather than it being a mystery. It's like, well, it doesn't matter. Like, let's get in there and snoop around, you know, like investigate. Like, it's just explore it, you see. So rather than it having to be the rules or something like that, I don't think any of the great players were concerned with the rules or supposed limitations of the instrument. We wouldn't have Jimi Hendrix if there was any concern for the limitations of the instrument, you know, or Van Halen, or something like that. So it's to be explored and enjoyed, rather than feared or being a mystery. It's there for the unraveling. It's good. That's how it is in. That's where it's from for me. Yeah, like I say, I'd go mad if I had to sit there and go all day. Yeah, not. Yeah. Any questions for anyone? No.
Understood.
That's it then. Well, we can all go now. We figured it out.
Well, you can always add something.
But if you have one totally free day, you decide to, okay, I dedicate this day to the guitar.
Yeah, normally I would dedicate it to going to the sea, to have a swim, and lay in the sun.
It's a bad day.
Yeah.
It's raining and you have to stay at home.
Yeah.
You say, okay, day for guitar. How do you build your working session? I don't know. Sorry for English, because you understand.
No, it's no problem. For me, it's just picking up the guitar, plug in the amp, and then I play. And at home, I have to say I don't use the amp at all, because it's enough, like a piece of wood, your fingers, and a nice chair, and some spare time. That's all you need for practicing.
But you use, I don't know, backing track, or?
No, not really. I just play and try to figure out, because I don't know anything about it. I try to figure out as much as I can, like work on chords, which I'm not too good at, and yeah, work on simple stuff, single notes, work on the sound, maybe a bit of the fingers, and on the vibrato side, like really the simple things. But no, I don't force myself to work.
Okay.
Because I know how I react. And then I want to go to the sea and have a swim. But even if you go to the sea and you choose lying in the sun and have a swim and go back and have some pizza and have a drink, you can always work things out in your own head as well, by using your imagination of music, or I don't know, grooving a bit with the general groove of life.
Yeah. It's part of life, really, rather than a separate thing that I do. It's just part of my life. And I have to say, I think backing tracks, they're very popular these days. It's just my opinion, but I think they're a bit bad for creativity and play, because people, again, the experience I've spent in this environment with people who are trying to get better, that spend a lot of time on backing tracks, you don't have to listen to what people tend to just play blindly over the top of this backing track, whereas in my opinion you'd be better to getting together with a friend and jamming, because two human beings, then, and you have to make adjustments then for the other person and listen to what they're doing, whereas so people coming from a backing track background often there's not a lot of breath in their playing. I'm not suggesting that that's
No,
you.
I
I'm just
understand what
general experience of it,
Yeah.
because it just the backing track is just going to do what it does, regardless of what you do. And so it's not a creative environment. And so I again I don't plug in at home. I just pick up the guitar and just see what comes out and try and make music in that context. And then when I get with the band, that's a different context of making music. So I never play the same way as I do. It's a lot less intense when I play here, but when you get the band, that makes me feel a different thing. So it's much more intense. So unless you saw the concert last night, I can't really represent what I do with the band here right now without that intensity, So then I have to find another way to make it sound good. So it's generally like sweeter sounding playing, sitting around, and then you get on the gig and it's like real aggressive or something, But that's because it's a natural expression, rather than do it. And I don't get that from backing tracks, and like it's because it's not any expression. It's just a thing. So that's more of a technical practice still to me. Again, it's not that they're not good to do, but sometimes it's good to just pick it up and go, okay, I'm going to play, this chord, and see where it leads from there, without being dictated to by a track. That would be my thought on that.
Thank you. Question.
Question? What about songwriting and creativity? So how do you fix after your session? How do you fix your idea to take it to the band, to take it to the real songwriting, let's say, to put the words on?
Good question. I wish I knew a good way, because I find it really, really hard to do. So sitting around playing, the playing of the guitar itself was really easy and obvious for me right from the beginning, but writing songs and singing and all that other stuff is really hard. So then I don't know. I don't have a method, So sometimes I just have the whole thing in my head, and I didn't even touch a guitar, and I know I have a new song, And then other times I'm like, oh man, I don't, and then I have a good idea, but I've got no way to capture it, so I forget it. So it could, it's so.
You don't have a routine for recording yourself?
Again, it just something pops up, and But I got a bunch of rubbish on my phone that I just put on my knee, and like, I should remember that, otherwise I won't, But that's about the extent of it. But usually the good stuff almost shows up in your head, or for me. But not often enough. It doesn't happen enough, So.
I think it's always a good way to copy a bass line or even a melody with your voice and then record it on the phone, because those two these days you always have with you.
Yeah.
One is natural, one not so much. But this is a good way also to capture a groove. If you go like, you can do lots of stuff with what you have naturally. And then for me it works always like this. I do this, I go groove, or I use a table as a drum or a chair or anything else that is there. And for me it's go into the studio and try to work it out with the instruments, bit of drumming, bit of bass, because it's good to be interested in those instruments as well. And what I can say is, like, it's always helpful for a guitar player or for any kind of instrument to go to the drums and try to play a bit whenever you have a chance, or use everything that is there around a case, table, something like this, to get a feeling of the groove, bass drum, snare, hi-hat, and fun.
Yeah. And like you're saying, just using like the table or the legs, or because and this is just what I personally find, when I first got like a shiny new Mac, 10 years ago or something, and it had GarageBand on it, and I tried to like make loops, but I found I was spending so much time with the mechanics of the technology and like trying to that the ideas were going disappearing faster than I could put them down. That's just, maybe I could get better at it, but I was like, give it a this, just record an idea or just literally sit there and play it until I can't not remember it, until it stays, and it's just whatever it is. But so yeah, I never really, in my mind, once upon a time, I imagined I'd have a studio like Jimmy's Electric Ladyland by now with an engineer, and I could just walk in and be like, right, we'll just, yeah, exactly. I could just turn up and be like, right, we're cutting a new song today, but unfortunately that hasn't happened. So now I just try and make a note on the phone, yeah. But somebody else to operate the technology, that's better.
Yeah, that's better.
Going back to the things you were saying earlier, what do you think about the role of the guitarist today? What does it mean to be a guitarist in the days of the YouTubers writing and to watch me do stuff on the guitar?
Right.
Are we saying something, or are we just projecting our egos to?
Interesting
Yeah.
question. Well, first of all, what it means to be a guitarist today is, if that's the only thing you do, it means that you're quite poor. No, we were talking about the music industry is a different place today than even 10 years ago. It is interesting, you see, because like there's a whole different thing now where people are like just guitarists on Instagram.
Yeah, that's
And they're famous, and they've never made a record or written a song, or even perhaps completed a whole version of a song. Their entire career is based upon 1-minute clips, and they fly all over the world now and guest.
Yeah.
He's an amazing player, but that guy Mateus Sasatu, he's amazing. But I've never heard more than a 1-minute clip of him, right? And I think maybe he's made an album now, and it's not taken away from his playing, but you just sort of go, he's got like 500,000 followers on Instagram.
Yeah, but they're not coming to the shows.
Right, and he flies around and he does stuff with Sir guitars and all that kind of thing, right? But it's not like a normal tour. It's more like these things, really, I suppose. Just it.
Yeah.
So it is strange. And then, there's people, they put up little clips on. I see them going past on Instagram, and they can't really play, but they put up a video every day, and they've got 10 times more followers than me or any number of other great musicians. So yeah, the guitar is a bit weird in that it's singled out as like its own thing to do rather than using it to make music. That's strange to me, because up until 20 years ago or something, it was generally used to make music, not just guitar clips.
And to make people feel good.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, actually, because I would see like there are two different kinds of playing or promoting or putting out music. One is like if you really enjoy what you do, and if you maybe have something to say that's coming from your heart or your soul, and you want to make music for yourself in the first place because you need it, because you didn't learn anything else, or you don't feel like doing anything else, and of course you have a feeling that you want to give something to the people who listen to music, and those connections are pretty much close to each other, because if you have something to say as a guitar player, and if you do it because you love it, you of course love all the other guitar players that have something to say, and you don't feel like concurrence with them, or like for example, I love his playing a lot, and I learn a lot from listening to him, because it's a natural thing to do, and
vice versa, yeah, it is.
and the other part of it is like doing it more as a sport. I'm the fastest, I can play the most crazy stuff, I'm the best, I have the most followers or something like this, I have so and so many likes on my 1-minute clip, and it's just a changing of the music world.
And
Actually.
society in general, it feels like, I hate to sound negative, but it feels like what you just said about doing it to bring joy to other people, and then when you see this Instagram thing, that's, to me, is like they're doing it to get likes for themselves. So when you mention like the ego and thing, it's definitely a different reason for putting it out there, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
I'd not really thought about that before. But again, yeah, what you're saying just about competing and stuff like that, it's always been really strange, because I remember the first time I went to the NAMM show, you know, and for about 10 minutes I was like, oh my god, everybody is so good, I can't play any of this. For about 10 minutes, you know, you have like this, oh no, everybody's so good, and then I went, but they can't play anything that I do either, you know, so then that's actually the beauty of, you can see that either way, you know, that's the beauty of it, is that that everybody has something to offer, and then you can enjoy it the same. Yeah, so I listen to Henrik and enjoy it like I listen to any great guitar players. You know, it's just the experience, and very much more liberating to remove any idea of something being. And it goes right back to that thing I was saying about BB Stevie and Albert Collins on that video. It's like they all just sound different, and they all sound great, and that's the real beauty of it. Just human beings, you know, who happen to play guitar. It's like that's the bit that's missing a lot of times, isn't it? Especially, I heard the radio the other day in London. I haven't listened to the actual like radio station, and every single song sounds the same groove, same chord changes, same line in there. I'm sure, all the pop music sounds exactly the same, and I was like, what's happened? No, really, because I'd not listened to it in so long, and I was like, even if you go back to what we thought was terrible pop music in the 80s, they're really good songs. No, they're really good, you know? Yeah, amazing. So, I think we just have to keep trying to put something genuine out there, don't we? And hopefully,
Yeah, of course.
you know, I
What
can't
else
stop
can
now.
we do?
It's too late to
That's too late.
It's too late to stop.
Yeah.
As I'm not a native speaker,
Yeah.
how to write an English song?
English lyrics.
Lyrics, yeah.
Well, depends on how good your English is, or I don't know how much time you have to work on it.
Yeah, I am an English speaker and I can't answer the question. It's really no, but it's really honestly, that's like the hardest thing for me.
I write down 3 lines
Yeah.
and then I
No, but you're German, right?
yes.
And I'm German too. What I always do is like I write something, and then I have some very nice friends who live in Chicago or London, and
Okay.
I have them check
Show it.
the lyrics if they make any sense.
Okay.
Because you
That's a
always
good
think
idea.
with your native language, I would say,
Yeah.
and then you write something down, and if it's grammatically incorrect, it doesn't really matter.
You
If
won't
you
be
have
successful.
a good friend to check them. Yeah.
I think the blues is fairly liberal in its grammatical correctness as well. That's a good thing about the blues. There's some of the greatest blues songs are not the
Yeah.
Queen's English, as we say.
Okay.
I would start with writing the slow blues lyric.
Okay, that's easy.
Yeah.
Just 2
It's,
lines.
yeah, it's on the one hand it's easy because you don't have to write a lot, but then on the other hand it's very hard because you don't have so much space to say something that needs to be said.
That's a good hint. Thank you.
Any more questions for now? We play shuffle.
Maybe we should play a show.
Maybe we should.
In the key of, pretty fancy.
I don't know.
How about like, let's see.
No, see.
Yeah.
If I would have this free day and Mac would be available, I would choose
Then we
to do
pretty
this all
much
day.
do that anyway, yeah. And maybe drink a couple of beers
And maybe
for medicinal purposes. Any other questions or thoughts?
How about the chord changes?
chord changes.
Oh, yeah,
I asked him.
that's true. You did.
Yeah,
And I
new
forgot.
answer, it's better.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
For
Okay, so
everyone.
first of all, the first important thing for me was when I realised that playing solos or lead or single note things and playing chords are not two different things. Which as guitarists, you know, you start learning chords like that, and then you decide at some point to go up here somewhere, you know, and they're like two different ideas, right? But they're not, nor should they be. And if you're a piano player, which I'm not, I'm horrible on the keyboard, but you would see that when you play a chord, it's some notes all at the same time, and then when you play the melody, it's basically the same notes but one after another, and that should be the same on the guitar, if that makes sense, rather than it being chords and soloing. So that was the first thing that I realised, and then actually from listening to BB, he would always outline the chord change in his solos, you know, so he would play, and then when the 4 came around, he's playing like in this case the 3rd out of the 4, and then the 5 he'd play something like, which is actually playing the E7th chord, if that makes sense. So this is about as theory as I get, but so I realised everything is just made out of the chord. So with blues, you're basically playing 7th chords, right? Bear with me on this one. You're playing 7th chords, but the main thing is the root note, the 7th, and the 3rd. And then you're playing the root note, the 3rd, and the 7th is the 4 chord change. And the 5 same. So that's called that's the triad of the chord, the 3 core notes. And anything else that you add on top of those 3 core notes are extensions of the chord. So to play, in this case, that's a 6th or 13th, I suppose, is just because I'm adding the 6th of the major scale, do, re, mi. It just depends how much theory you know. And as I say, I don't know much, so I know this might sound complicated to some people, but this is basic major scale, do, re, mi.
Yeah.
C to C on the piano, you know.
I know.
So I'm just taking that triad, and then I'm putting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in this case, it's an F sharp, F sharp, and I'm putting that onto that triad, the root, the 7th, the 3rd, and the 6th, and we have a 6th chord. So running ahead a bit here, but when I play solos, I do the same thing to the basic pentatonic shape that we all learn as, or blues scale in that case. But so we take the minor pentatonic, and we can add that 6th. You see, or so that's just one example, or the same thing again. That's like adding a 9th to the same triad. So you can add that to when you're playing over that So it's not really much more complicated than that,
Okay.
other than sticking to a blues progression. So then when we go to the 4 chord, the D7, I do the same for that chord rather than, so in this case, I'm playing the notes from that chord, which is technically the Mixolydian, but that sounds scary, don't worry about that. I'm just playing D major. So let me back this up. It's hard to explain because I just know how to do it rather than.
Can you figure out yourself what sounds?
Yeah, you figure out the sounds. That's all it is. But
Thanks.
so there's no. It's not the technical rules, but it's actually really simple once it clicks, right?
Yeah.
And so basically, all I'm doing when I play on a blues is playing on the 1 chord. In the case of A, I'm playing the minor pentatonic. I'm playing the major pentatonic, and then a couple of other, like, you know, the blue note, and a couple of other things. But I see the chord as the minor pentatonic and or the major pentatonic. And then the 4 chord, I just play the major pentatonic on it. The minor one doesn't work. You know. You can play that over it, but it's more for effect. And then the 5 chord, I'm playing the. Oh, sorry. I still play the A minor pentatonic over and the D major pentatonic. And then the 5 chord, you've got the A minor pentatonic still, and the E minor pentatonic, which is only 1 note different than the A minor pentatonic. So you could say it's the A minor pentatonic with the 9th, and then the E major pentatonic. So that one's got the most choices of all, the 5 chord, because it's a resolving chord to try and get you back to the 1. So I know it sounds like a lot right now, but that's not much to learn. That's like, 3 chords, and just the notes that fit over them. And as I say, that's the bulk of my theory is just around that. I don't know any more modes or stuff off the scales. It's just major, minor, pentatonic for each chord in the progression. And if that's basically, you can play over pretty much any song if you know whether to play the major or the minor pentatonic. By the sound of it, not by where you put it, so it's, I know what the major pentatonic sounds like, I know what the minor pentatonic sounds like. So if I find myself on a chord, then I can pick one of those to knowing which will work better, if it's a major sounding chord or a minor sounding chord. And that's about it, really. But there's definitely a bit of trial and error to get to know, But I never went any further than that with like I don't know.
Came far.
Well, yeah, but it's not that. That's what Henrik's doing as well. Maybe even he doesn't call them the major or the minor pentatonic, but you're making the same audio choice when you hit a chord. It's like, am I going to make this more major sounding or minor sounding? And that's whereas most sort of, I would say, aspiring or amateur blues players, they don't bring out the major sound very much, other than as a B.B. King lick. But there's much more to the melodic possibility if you have both the choice of major or minor on any given chord. So, and for each chord as well, rather than just playing one minor pentatonic scale over everything. That was the beginning of the end for blues guitar. When people started doing that, Some people, but there's an art to that as well. Stevie Ray Vaughan played E minor pentatonic through all those changes on Riviera Paradise, right? But that's because he was Stevie Ray Vaughan and he could extract the emotion and the melody from 5 simple notes over. I mean, he was playing like E minor pentatonic over like F major 7th and stuff, you know. Which is hard to get that to sound good, but he did it. So that's the flip side to what I'm telling you as well. There's the exception to the rule, you know.
I can do what I want.
You do whatever sounds good, and that's basically it. Yeah. But you know, sometimes with certain things it's worth taking the time to investigate the rules because it may help clarify it's whatever gets you there. Some people do better with. Like I played Johnny Henson, my original organ player that I went to school with. You know, he learned classical piano at school, and so he's a lot of theory. He doesn't really use it while he's playing with me so much as, but you can say to Johnny, "What is that?" and he knows right away. You know, so that's useful as well. But I know I know what it is that I'm doing with how I play, but I couldn't tell you for somebody else. You know, somebody came up the other day and said that I was very Lydian or something, and I don't know what that means. Yeah. I said I'm almost certainly not, because I don't know what that is. But so that kind of thing. But it's basically, I think even Joe Pass, the great jazz guitarist, said the same thing. It's major or minor on each chord that you play is deciding that, and with a bit of diminished as well, which is what we were playing in the. Again, it's still just a chord in that first blues. Oh, see, I'm getting it wrong when I talk about it. So that chord, my finger is. So the scale is the same notes as the chord, but one after another instead of all at the same time. So that applies to anything really. You know? So hopefully that makes sense a bit to everybody. Sometimes it'll just go click, you know, but it's not getting bogged down in learning every scale for every chord is not for me, but just choosing major or minor and using the notes that you're already playing as your guide. A more important thing, I think, is to think about how you choose to treat the third, because we're essentially blues. You're playing the blues sound exists in the way you do the third and that tension against it, because you're playing over a 7th chord. Quite often you're playing, so that's a C sharp in the chord, but the melody you're playing a C against it. So that tension between is where it's important, and that how you choose to play that major or minor third over whatever chord is the difference between sounding good and sounding sour, you know. So I never hit a third dead on like against that doesn't sound good. But I can't, how do I do? Can you play me an A7th?
No, that's it.
So it's a bit nasty, but not all the way, but a little bit is where things start to sound bluesy, basically. So it's playing with that, and then can you play the D, the next chord in the progression? And so that's the third in the 4 chord. So and like highlighting that leads your ear into the changes, you know, the listener. So if we go basically my whole thing, is that just playing thirds from the chords. So again, it's not really complicated, it's just kind of sneaky use of something simple. So that's just major or minor, and letting the listener know. Best I can do in 5 minutes.
Then, of course, if you sit at home and you have the guitar in your hand and you just try out chords, it's the most important thing to educate your ears, that you recognize if something sounds bad or good, and then you can pretty much go with everything, even if you don't know the name of the chord. But as long as your ears tell your heart that it feels good and sounds good, everything is okay. So it's fun to dig
that's
into
the ultimate law.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound good, yeah. Like, that's it, yeah. The ultimate music theory is does it sound good? Yeah.
Let's play some.
Play some?
E?
A little funky?
Little funky. Anything that you would like to learn? What we maybe can teach you?
I saw that, especially on the first song, you made a lot of different turnarounds. Can you tell me something about
Of different turnarounds?
turnarounds, end of
Turnaround.
Turnarounds.
turnarounds?
Um, uh, oh, now the string is in the watch. But you mean like a turnaround,
Yeah.
like this, for example?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really can't tell you anything about it. I just can show it to you, maybe. I do everything that sounds good for me, and I work on this kind of stuff at home. And you just have to try it out.
You see, I always say, I don't really think, because I often see things like about the turnaround, but I don't see it as being a thing. It's just another part of life as a thing. I never worked on just turnarounds. It would be just, that's just another part of the song. Do you see what I mean? So it's hard to say, oh, this is a turnaround. I just, when it gets to that part in the progression, I play whatever comes out nearest to where I am, basically. So rather than having totally fixed ideas of a turnaround, that's always going to be right. That's one. So that's a turnaround, but that may crop up, or maybe it won't, because I won't in my. So, whatever's closest
But
to
the
the
other
thing
was nice.
was that. Yeah, so I've never seen him as an individual thing. I might use the same idea as, well, you call it jazz blues. Or if I was trying to explain it to someone with those changes. So, because you could play the progression and then use that as the turnaround. But that's just some ideas on the spot, isn't it? Really, rather than definitely things I know. So it's like having a conversation, isn't it? And I don't know what I'm even going to say at the end of this sentence in about 30 seconds, but hopefully I'll navigate it in a direction where it makes sense mostly in English. If you see, alright,
Yes.
it's just.
And most of the time you don't even have to play a turnaround if you are in a solo. Maybe you can land on some. And then you just play those two chords, and that's enough of a turnaround. Most of the time, even.
I suppose like learning like something like Hideaway by Freddie King gives you lots of cool like ideas, but I would never see them as they're having to be like I'd learned that once, so I need to play it exactly. But I think that's probably like he does all the stuff in Hideaway, right? And so there's good ideas to be extracted from them, but it's about building. To me, it's about building a vocabulary rather than exact phrases, So it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to answer, isn't it? It's hard. On and on it's like you can extrapolate, you can keep expanding on the idea. And just keep going, right? So, more exploration.
We just talk about your gear and instruments or amplifiers, anything you are using now on stage or discussing guitar player things.
Yeah, this is for me. This is my main touring guitar. It's about 4 years now. It was a little bit aged when he. So it's a replica of I have an original 1961 Fender Stratocaster that I don't like to travel with because it gets lost and stolen and things like that too easily. So my friend in England, Simon Law, who I've known for 25 years, I used to buy my strings off him when I was a kid. He worked in the local guitar shop, and I'd go in and ask him for some strings, like, "I have some strings like Stevie Ray Vaughan." So I've known him since then, and so he knows my stuff really well. So he built this for me as a replica. So he aged it a little bit, and then it's pretty much done every gig for the last 4 or 5 years now. So and it's all made of old wood. He found wood that would be the same age and type as Fender would have used in 1961. So the weight is really similar, and then the only thing is with the fancy neck, with the flame, the tiger stripe. But the rest of it, the Fender wouldn't have that. But other than that, it's exactly like a 1961 Strat, except for bigger frets. I have to have big frets, otherwise I can't get any grip on the strings. And I use 11 to 54 strings, and by a company called Kurt Mangan. They're really good. Never broken one on a gig in 9 years now. So that goes a long way, not breaking the strings. And the pickups are Mark Foley pickups, which are from the Isle of Wight in the UK, which is a strange little island on the bottom. And they're just like 1960s Stratocaster pickups, but I put the tone control on the bridge pickup. So I just can. It's just a bit more balanced, you know. And that's it really for the guitar. Very simple. Always use the blue 1mm picks, and I use them sideways, or kind of 3/4 of the way round, because that I can't play with the pointy bit and it sounds better. So to me, it sounds better versus the pointy bit. I can hear more of the pick, whereas I get this slight area. Versus, so that's a big secret, and everybody always asks about my tone all the time, but they never ask what pick I use and how I hold it, and it's way more important than the amp or even the guitar in a way, you know, like that. The tone difference I hear between and kind of right versus that. That's it there. So very important.